Life throws a lot of challenges at us, and the only one thing that is constant in life is change. But amidst this one constant, we get lost several times. We have no idea how to deal with the constant change that's going on in our life. What happens when change is thrown at you? Do you have a strategy? Do you understand how to adapt, how to create momentum? Do you have a culture in your business? Do you have a culture in your family? Do you have a culture with the tribe that supports you, that will help you to navigate change? Change is the constant in life, and it is the thing that we're going to discuss today. Welcome to the Evolve Podcast. Evolve your body, evolve your mind, evolve your soul, and evolve your tribe. And now it's time to disrupt. And with that, folks, I want to welcome you to another episode of the Evolve Podcast. Joining me in the winter weather of Oberlin, Ohio, is the most interesting man that I know, W. Miles Riley. Welcome, Miles.
Thank you, Steve, and thanks for sending the snow that left Utah. Thank you for sending it here because
you're welcome.
We got it today. We got the notice, no school. Tiago was overjoyed.
Nice.
And I was out there playing in, a foot of snow. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Hey, there is more where that came from, buddy, but this time it is rain. As I look outside my window right now, we've got rain and wind. What a crazy winter we've had. You know what? The ski resorts, it's been over 600 inches this year that have dropped. Just unbelievable amounts of snow. Don't get me wrong. I love the snow, but I'm ready for some time on the beach. So somewhere in the mountains of Utah, my name is Steve Cutler. Thanks again for joining us for another episode of the Evolve Podcast. We are really excited about our guest tonight. I like to call him Russell's Muscles because when you look at him, it's what he is, just extremely muscular, but he's got this beautiful mustache as well. Russ Sherman, thanks so much for joining us.
I appreciate it, Steve. It's definitely a pleasure to be with you and share some time with you and Miles.
Yeah,
I've always looked up to you.
Well, I appreciate that. We are excited to have you here and sharing some wisdom with us. Tell our listeners a little bit about yourself. What do you, who you are, and what you do.
Yeah, 100%. My name's Russ Sherman. I come out of a small town in Blackfoot, Idaho. Born in Soda Springs, Idaho, and then we moved out when I was in third grade to Blackfoot, Idaho, where I was pretty much raised. I grew up around sports. I was a big sports fanatic. Love football, basketball. My mind was all about being the best in sports and really striving in that area. And then I decided I needed to go off and venture and explore the world and do all the things necessary to be able to kind of resonate with all the people that I would associate in my future. And so I set off my journey and went to New York City, of all places, spent a couple years, came back and knew the small town wasn't for me. So I packed my bags and headed to small town in Utah, in Orem. And from there, created a life. And now I'm a fitness professional, entrepreneur, and I love to impact lives wherever I can, wherever I am.
Love that. And, health and fitness is a great fit for you, obviously, because you love sports, you love moving, you love staying active. And there's a significant motivational component to health and fitness, right? You've got to develop I don't even know what you call it, a knack for motivation if you're going to stay in the fitness industry for a long period of time. Because what most people find is it takes more mental strength than physical strength to continue in this for the long term. So tell our listeners a little bit about how did you get into the health and fitness, and how did you become a fitness professional?
Yeah, great question. So back when I was a kid, I grew up, Dad, he lifted weights all the time. He had the punching bag. He was always hitting the bag, lifting weights. and I was just around it. And, you know, as I grew up, I found myself in the gym all the time. And, you know, I was the first one at the gym bright and early, you know, 4 a.m. I was there, and, you know, it just made me feel good. And, you know, after school, after, you know, all my activities, I would find myself back in the gym. And then it just became a part of my life and really allowed me to find out who I was. And every time I left that gym, and each year I found myself in a different form, and I saw my body changing and my mind started to change. And so the evolution of, you know, the beginning, when I was in diapers, I still have pictures to this day when I was in diapers lifting my first dumbbell.
Nice. That's great.
And it's definitely a prized possession of mine. But I decided that I needed to do something that I really loved to do. I didn't want to do something my parents did. I didn't want to, you know, follow after their footsteps, and nothing against what they were doing, you know, school teacher, construction. I just didn't, my heart wasn't there. And so, you know, I told myself that I was going to do something that I loved. And again, I found myself in the gym. So I decided, you know, I needed to figure out how to make this a career. And so I literally started training people without having a certification. After that, I thought I was cool. And, you know, I was like, I don't need a certification. I'm going to go get a job at a gym. And so I literally went around in my little small town and, you know, asked these gym owners if I could have a job training people. I get turned down every time I'd go there. And it was interesting. I remember this vividly, actually, going into a gym owner and asking him, you know, what does it take to, you know, get a job here so I could train, you know, the people in here. He says, you got to be certified. Well, and I told him, I was like, well, I know how to train people. I've been training for years. He's like, no, you got to be certified. And I was pretty upset. And then fast forward a little bit, you know, I had to go through some different evolutions and changes to allow, you know, the overall career to take place. I ended up going to Alaska and doing different things to pay for college and different things. And then it evolved into getting my certification as a CPT. And then as I continued down that path, I was just a big geek. I just ate it up, and I just couldn't get enough of it. And so from that first cert, and that's a story in itself, you know, because I'm not a big book guy. I'm not, you know, I didn't think I was very intelligent. I'm not a test-taking type of individual. I'm more of a visual, hands-on type of guy. And so it took me a little bit to get that first cert. But after that, it was part of me, and I wanted to change lives, and it made me feel good to help people do what I love to do. And from there, it you know, brought me to where I am today, and it's changed my life in so many different aspects, from the relationships to, you know, how I raise my family, how I coach my kids, how I associate with people, just the opportunities that I've had. And so, long story short, that's what got me into it, is pretty much my dad, and the habit after that and how it made me feel is what really got me into, you know, health and fitness, and has really changed my life.
Yeah, it's amazing how where we find ourselves later in life, there's seeds of that, you know, that were planted in our early life, right? Like you, I grew up loving the outdoors, loving movement, playing basketball, all sorts of things. And so I think that led me in a very similar space. So pretty common thing there, that whether you're in Blackfoot, Idaho, or anywhere else in the world, that spark can hit you, right? You've been a fitness professional for how many years now?
I'm at 17 years so far.
Wow.
So
that's amazing. Almost coming up on 2 decades now. Russ, one of the things that I know that you focus on quite a bit is helping people to navigate change in life, and navigate change in business, and navigate change through their life Talk a little bit about why change is so difficult for people.
Yeah, that's a great question, Steve. I think the biggest thing that, if we look at someone's life, we can see from the time they were born to their current reality, their conditioning, as a child, whatever their circumstance was, whatever their upbringing was, their environments, their parent situation, single family home, 2-parent home, the schooling that they were brought up in, all those nuances, within kind of the evolution of a human being. I tend to find that we get hardwired in a sense that when life happens, which is inevitable, right? We find that we resist change, and it's hard to change because of the fact that those hardwires are so deeply wired to the core and to the, they're just tight, and it's hard to unwire something that's been hardwired. And so I think that the biggest thing, to answer your question, is it's hard to undo, a person's conditioning from when they were young.
Yeah. There's a lot to that.
Let me ask, because what Russ was one of the first people I met. Russ was the first trainer I met at Lifetime when I started working there, and him and Robbie Rafeko, and I watched you work with people, man. I watched people come in and they would almost be like excited to be in the gym. Like, how do you contrast what you just said and turn that into something that people can grasp so change becomes easier for them? Because I've seen you work with people and it seems like you've busted through their resistance. What do you do to get through that?
That's a great question. It gives me the chills when you ask that, because it's a process I learned from a coach a long time ago, actually. And I use it every time I go into change, into resistance, and I call it Y times 10. So I love the visual of kind of the life cycle of an individual, right? I like to picture a circle, and we start off, on this journey called life, right? And I like to call that the status quo. And then all of a sudden in life, right, life happens, and all of a sudden we smack that wall, right? We hit it. And then all these thoughts, feelings, emotions, and moods arise, and we start getting emotional. We get drunk up our emotions. And then all of a sudden in this circle, right, it's a slippery slope. We got two options, right? We have the option to kind of hang a sharp left, which is going to take us to what I like to call eternal expansion, always learning, always growing. But again, the emotion, those thoughts, feelings, emotions, and moods are so strong that our bodies and our abilities to be proactive within that situation is just not possible without the proper repetition, right? And the training and the habitual patterns. And so what happens is we slowly slide down the circle. And I want you to visualize off that circle, we have tree branches. And we have an opportunity to grab up on those tree branches and pull ourselves up to kind of grasp a little bit of breath, hope, and possibility. But again, we're so drunk off of emotion, we continue to fall down that slippery slope into what I like to call the dark pit, the pit where we get swallowed up in, right? It's this hole. It's this mindset. It's this way of being that's victimized. Poor me. Why me? Why is this happening to me? I can't do this. This is too hard. Our old life, our old self-gravity is just so heavy. We can't fathom on how to navigate what we just, what just happened, the change. And so we sit in there for a minute until we have a mentor or a coach or someone that inspires us to kind of climb out of that hole and see this light. this light that allows us to see hope, to see that there's something on the other side of that dark pit. And all of a sudden you gain the strength and the momentum to get out of that dark hole, and you start crawling out on the other side of that circle, which on that other side of that circle, if you're with me and you're visualizing that circle, there's tree branches on this other side too. And then you gain the strength, and all of a sudden you start climbing up those tree branches. And you get stronger and stronger because the hope, the mentor, has inspired you. You start seeing kind of your purpose, the momentum. And then all of a sudden you find yourself right back up to the road, what I like to call the status quo, your journey, where you've been. And then you get going, right? You have hope. You set a new goal. And then all of a sudden, bam, right? You run into that wall again. And it's consistent. And I like to call this hypnotic rhythm. If you haven't read the book, Outwitting the Devil, it's an amazing book talking about conversation with the devil. And it talks about hypnosis in the hypnotic rhythm. And I kind of term this because in life, we get hypnotized by that very cycle that I explained. Mm-hmm. And it's not until we integrate what I like to call the Y times 10 that we can really get into motion and stay in motion. And like you were saying, the people I work with, I had to allow them to see that visual and to see what their life cycle would be and continue to be if they didn't get out and let me help them. And so I would drill down. I would say, for example, Miles, what are your goals? And you would tell me, well, Russ, I want to lose 10 pounds. I want to lose a little bit of body fat percentage. I want to look good, feel good. Great, Miles. I love that. But at the end of the day, Miles, why does losing 10 pounds even matter? Why does losing body fat even matter? Why does looking good, feeling good even matter to you? And I would sit there and let them tell me. And then I would write it down and I would repeat what they said to me. Okay, well, I want to feel better because I'm tired of looking in the mirror and looking like crap. Right? And then I would repeat that. Okay. Well, looking in the mirror and looking good at the end of the day, Miles, why does that truly matter to you? And they would tell me, and I would drill down, and I still to this day use this process because to me, it is the turning point. It's the pattern reset. It's the opportunity to rewire the mind to get the specific results that you want. So that being said, I drilled down 10 times until I hit that emotional strength, right? Something that I call it their driving force. And it takes sometimes a lot, and it takes some practice. I've done thousands of reps of doing this to the point where I can get to someone's heart and understand what's going to drive them. Because if I just allow them to be one level on their why, there's no way they're not going to show up to our sessions. They're not going to change their mindset. They're not going to rewire. They're not going to do all those things necessary to get through change, to really create impact, transformation in their life. And so it's my duty and obligation. If they're going to give me money, I have got to make sure that I understand their driving force so that way I can help them, right? Remember what it is that is driving them and going to keep them from staying in that vicious cycle, the hypnotic rhythm that's only going to keep them there for 60, 70, 80 years until they die with all their goals, all their dreams undone. And for me in my life, I will not let people in my circle across from me go down like that. I want them to really, rise to their true potential.
Yeah, there's a lot of wisdom in what you're talking about. Carol DeWick in her book Mindset talks quite a bit about this idea of the fixed mindset, and what you're referencing with this hardwiring. We don't even realize all of the things that we have become hardwired to believe, think, do. Everything from habits, thoughts, nuanced patterns of behavior. We get fixated on it. And as you're talking about this cycle, I'm sure a lot of our listeners are resonating with that. They say, yeah, I've been through that. I go through the slide. I come back up. Then I hit status quo again. But what I think a lot of people don't understand, and until somebody points it out, is this cycle doesn't need to continue. The cycle is based on some sort of fixed mindset, some sort of fixed behavior. We're fixed on the past. We're fixed on the old wiring. And that is what's keeping us back. And so in order to create growth, we've got to unplug all of these different cords from the past. We have to go back to what it was that put these cords together, that started to wire the brain the way that it was. Once we start to do that, as you're talking about, this tree branch, you're climbing out, you're climbing out, you're climbing out. Lots of times you get to the status quo, but you might even be a little bit worse off than before. Because status quo now means, oh, I hit the same weight. But last time you dieted, you may have lost muscle and fat. And now when you put weight back on, you might just have put on more body fat. So your weight might be the same, but your body is going to be metabolically off. What you focus on is helping people to identify these mindsets, to identify where those fixed points are through the past and help them to move forward. When you've peeled back these onion layers and you've gone through the questioning of why does a person want to reach their goal, what's the next step?
Awesome. So your question, where do you go after you find, the why times 10, after you peel back the onion and really understand the person?
Yep.
Yeah, just like you said, it's all about peeling that onion back and really finding that core. So I always gauge temperature. I always want to understand where the individual is really, because I believe in energy. I believe, after doing this for so many years, there's people that really need my help and that want my help. If they're an energy vampire is what I like to call them, I don't want to work with them. And it's not because they're a bad person or that they're not a right fit. It's just, I only have so much energy to give, and I want to give it powerfully. Yeah. I don't want to give it in a way that, is lazy or just going through emotions. And so I gauge temperature.
But that's a great point. I want to pause on that for just a second, because an energy vampire just isn't ready to change. Right. So we have to recognize that. And you've got to ask yourself, if you say you want to change, but you're the person that constantly is going to your friends, or you hire 10 coaches and never listen to them, you are an energy vampire and you're not ready to change. So save your money. Don't go out and hire a coach. Figure out why it is that you need the attention that you need, and dig deep and, go deeper rather than going and stealing other people's energy. So I think that's a really important point, Russ. I love that you brought that up, because we see that too often, not just in health and fitness, but in life. Energy vampires are just trying to get some sort of validation from other people. They're not ready to change. They're addicted to the cycle of help. They're addicted to the cycle of, getting that attention because something's wrong.
Exactly. So after I get their temperature, and I usually gauge that by asking a simple question. Steve, on a scale 1 to 10, 1 being you're not committed, 10 being you're super committed, and you're ready for me to coach you and to transform your life, how committed are you? And I'll just shut up and I'll let them think about it, mow it over. And it takes a little bit, because some people are kind of like, I don't know, And so after that, if it's a 5 or a 6, I'm gonna close the gap. And if I can't close the gap, then it's not a fit. I'm gonna move on, and I'm gonna tell the person to go home and do some homework. I want them to drill a little bit deeper on what they truly want and why it matters. And I'll give them homework to go home and ponder about, because like you said, they're just not ready. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. Not everybody's ready for Russ, because yep. I'm a different trainer. I'm not your typical guy where you come in, count your reps. I actually work and I meet the person where they're at. I love, and I don't create any judgment. I mean, you could smell like fish. You can look horrible. Whatever. I'm going to love you because I love changing lives. I'm going to
Are you
get into
talking
your
about
heart.
Miles right now, smelling like fish and looking horrible?
You notice I didn't say anything. I'm just going to take a shower when this is over.
Thank you.
It happens. It happens. No, but it's a step to allow me to understand their commitment level to be able to get into their life and create a process that will transform their life forever. And once they get into my program, my system, it's a whole nother beast, because it's not just training, it's mindset, it's more in rituals, it's the process, it's retreats, it's creating momentum, it's continuing to build a being that cannot be disturbed when change happens, because it's inevitable. Right? We see it. We're seeing it today. The economy's going to crap. How do we deal with it? Well, everything we learned in fitness, you're going to be able to take that, what I taught you, and apply it to what's going on right now in the economy, in your world, in your career, in your spirituality, in your relationships, in your financial game, right? And it's going to blow your mind.
Yeah, and it's about, I like how you're talking about these different aspects that have significant crossover in different aspects of people's lives. In order to get those things going, though, you've got to create this massive momentum at the very beginning, right? Once somebody's in pretty good shape, they know how to eat well, it's a lot easier to maintain, right? You've created the lifestyle. Gaining muscle is more difficult than maintaining the muscle is, right? Getting lean is more difficult than maintaining a leaner body. How is it that you're developing this momentum with people when they get started?
It starts with the first conversation, right? It's a mindset. And I've really got to understand if this person has that mindset. And typically I'll find out within the first session, because it's a different type of training. It's a training that not a lot of people can handle, just because it's hard. Just like you said, it's hard to build muscle. It's hard to maintain muscle. It takes a special ability in the mind, and to really structure a program that creates the tension necessary to maximize the growth of muscle. Mm-hmm. And so it really comes down to a specific ability and capacity to be able to endure pain. And people think that you can get these crazy results in the body, in the financial, in your spirituality, in your relationships, by just going through the motions. No, you've got to create pain, deliberate pain, and understand that it's going to take work. And I show them what that work's going to look like, what it's going to feel like. But understanding Coach Russ is there to guide you through what you're feeling, because he's never going to put you through something that he hasn't already put himself through and worked through and mastered, right? The nuances of those pains are very delicate. And some people, they break if you cannot coach to that threshold or that capacity. And so, I'm very careful with my progressions. I'm very careful with my conversations, my wording. I really look at, a lot of nuances, their body language, facial expressions, their energy, their flow. There's a lot of nuances that go into, really creating, the muscle in all aspects of life.
Yeah. Relationship with pain, I think, is probably one of the most important things. Arnold Schwarzenegger, when he talked about becoming top bodybuilder in the world, and still to this day, I think many Mr. Olympians will say that Arnold was the best. I saw a video recently of Ronnie Coleman, who won more Mr. Olympias than Arnold did. And he said, no, Arnold was the best Mr. Olympia of all. Arnold's relationship to pain was different than anybody else's. He knew that once he got into the pain, that's where the growth happened. And he started to create this almost euphoric association with pain. because every single time he got into pain, he knew that growth was on the other end of it. And so there's a famous talk that he gives where he discusses the idea that people would ask him, why do you smile when you're in the gym? And he says, smile because when I go into pain, I'm happy because I know that on the other end of pain, that's where the growth is. I'm building bigger calves. I'm building a bigger chest. I'm building a bigger arm, whatever it is. And it's the same way in life if we know how to utilize pain. But utilizing pain, utilizing challenge that's right in front of us is not a skill set that everybody develops. Probably one of the most important skill sets, in my opinion, in life, not just the gym, but in life, being able to utilize pain. Walk us through, Russ, how you coach people to change their relationship to pain.
Yeah, so that's a deep question. I think the biggest thing that I do is I hold high mountain retreats. I call it the GOAT Revolution. And it's a space, it's a vulnerable space, it's a safe space that we create a very heightened depth of pain to create vulnerability, to create different thoughts, different emotions, different opportunities to explore what pain is in all different aspects, faith, family, fitness, financial, in all those different aspects. And so as I coach someone into that process, I call them evolutions. I tee them up in a way that they can understand that they're about to go through something that's going to give them a little bit of pain. Mm-hmm. And what I've noticed is I slowly kind of baptize them into pain, walk them through the process and allow them to be within the pain and coach them through. It becomes easier to understand that human beings can do amazing things with the right coaching, with the right training around pain. And so it's a process. It's a slow process. And for some people, you may disagree with me. A lot of people jump into pain. And I think, there's a certain time and place for that. But I think for what I'm talking about, coaching someone into pain and how to endure pain and how to embrace pain and how to learn from pain, it's a process of learning, because some people, have trauma in the past, triggers. And so you got to be careful when you're coaching someone that comes from that space.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I think the biggest thing is giving people experience, whether it's, small pain, medium pain, large amounts of pain. And so it's a progressive thing. So I like to start off my evolutions with, mini pain cycles, if you will, to help create, right, their capacity to endure pain. And then before they know it, at the end of the retreat, they can go home knowing that they did something really hard. And now they have the experience, the practical experience, the tool sets, skill sets, and mindsets to be able to deploy in all areas of their life, faith, family, fitness, financial, or whatever they want to do in life. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. I like how you talked about that small to big.
Isn't it kind of interesting how people will somehow assimilate and lean into pain that's been imposed on them? Well, it's kind of ironic they get comfortable with pain, and yet when it comes time to use pain that you're picking to change, they resist that, if that makes sense, and will continue to go live in the other pain and not understand that pain is pain. And if you want to live in that pain where you're not happy with your body, you're not happy with your life, you're not happy, that's painful. And then all of a sudden, when it comes time to change, that's the pain that they just kind of push to the side because they think that's too difficult. Right. You want to speak to that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of substance there. I think it's the space. I think it's the space that they're in, their environment, their association with those around them, right? I think that when they're in a space of like-minded individuals that are going through similar changes or situations, they're more vulnerable to act within that space. Rather, their old self-conditioning, that is painful, that they're willing to just sit in that because it's comfortable pain, right? It's not deliberate pain that we're creating over here. It's comfortable pain. They're used to that, right? It's almost like they enjoy it, even though they don't know they enjoy it.
Yeah.
And so I think
but there is a chemical release. Pain does give like a sense of pleasure to some people, and I think that, like you said, they enjoy it. I actually think they do, and that's part of why it gives validation. People get addicted to the pain of rejection. People get addicted to the pain because it's often easier to say, well, I failed over here, and they're addicted to that rather than the pain and the difficulty that it takes to stick to a goal and achieve their best life, right? Evolution is not easy. It's much easier to say, oh, I was rejected, or oh, this happened. And that pain addiction is something that I see happen so much. Every excuse in the book, oh, I didn't know because of this, or well, that person said that, right? We get addicted to pain, and we become really good at making excuses.
Steve is just telling us he likes to get spanked.
It's weird. But people get so addicted to this idea that their life is what it is because of somebody else, and that the world, the universe, somebody's against them. I heard someone rant recently about, oh, so many people are against me, and so many people are talking about this and talking about that. I'm like, dude, no one cares. No one's talking about you. No one cares about your life.
Yeah.
When you're not around, nobody cares. Nobody is talking about you. Like, I don't mean that in a rude way, but no one cares. They've got their own lives. And so I think this pain addiction is part of what keeps people on this slippery slope down into the pit. And it just because now I can make an excuse. Talk a little bit more, Russ, about the small introductions of pain and how you're helping people to introduce pain, get a slightly deeper feeling, and then you can go deeper and deeper and boil the goldfish.
No, I love it. So when I start off, retreat, I go into, for the small aspect of pain, right? Let's talk more, mentally,
Okay.
compared to physical pain. So I usually start off with more mental pain, right? And that's going to be our limited beliefs. And so I have an evolution that I do, that I have them. I mean, this is, we're 2, 3, 4 in the morning when I've, prepped them, and we're talking about what the experience is going to be. And I've coached them through the process, and we go in and we're under the stars, we're under the moon, and we're in a space of vulnerability that they can open up and just download and just purge, everything, that they're dealing with, that's holding them back. And so I'll have them on this bottle, full of water. I'll have them write down all their limiting beliefs, with the permanent marker. It's about a 1 liter bottle. And I'll give them, 20, 30 minutes just to really sit on it and ponder and really come to terms with, what's really holding them back. And that's, for me, in my experience, I think that's, a little bit of pain, right? That's just kind of breaking the surface and allow them to kind of feel those emotions, kind of go through those things and those thoughts, those feelings, and kind of navigate those.
Almost like an awareness of pain at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. And then, as the night goes on, we set those aside, and then we do a couple other things. And then the next day, I'm able to, we set them up as targets, and we have, 9mm, machine guns, whatever, they want to use. And we teach them gun safety. We teach them all these things. And we go up and we have them set up their limited beliefs. And then we have them just blown to pieces.
Nice.
just trying to shoot them, and the release of that, right? And kind of
visceral. That's like a gut. Yeah, I mean, you're feeling that when those things explode, I would imagine.
100%.
Yeah, cool.
And that's another kind of a progression to pain, and there's a lot to learn in that. It's a loaded conversation, but from there, we go as far as, okay, I'm gonna throw in some weight when you're tired, you're exhausted, and we're gonna claim those as these rocks, these burdens, these stories that you've been holding on since you were in third grade. I remember my first experience doing this with one of my coaches. We were doing a 5-day retreat, and I had some heavy stuff that I was carrying. And so, we kept piling it on, and mile after mile after mile, when I was exhausted and fatigued, the pain was just something that I've never fathomed before. And so my body was starting to tap out, and my story would just grow into this crazy, why am I doing this? Why am I here? And it helped me explore, as my coach coached me through the pain that I was in, and kind of what I've been holding on that's not allowing me to break free into really creating the life that I've always wanted to create. And pain got so deep that at the end, it was just a powerful experience. Just to share with you and everyone that's listening, I fell to my knees in just this excruciating pain of not only pain, but relief, that I was able to get rid of some of the biggest barriers that have been holding me back since I was a kid, and releasing, the pain, and liberating my soul and my mind, my heart, to be able to go freely and expand, create something anew. And in that moment, my life was changed forever. And that's, again, another reason why I do what I do. And then I can look back on that experience and be like, say I'm dealing with a career thing, or a client, or something challenging. I can go back to that moment because it's so vivid. The pain was so intense. It left a mark. It's part of my success formula. And I can relive that moment and realize that if I'm almost dying and I feel like I'm dying, I can shift to low gear. I can change gears.
Yeah.
I don't have to give up.
Great
right?
point. Great point.
And so it really shifted my ability to create. And that's why now I'm evolving into this human being that just wants to change the world, because I know the evolution of a human on up to my point in my life. And I know what works and what doesn't work. And I just want to make an impact through, obviously, my experiences that I've had and the coaching that I've had, and just create a massive impact in people's lives.
Yeah, it's amazing when we have a breakthrough like that. We go on our own hero's journey, that we then want to create those for other people. Right? We have some sort of epiphany. We break through the challenge, we break through the struggle, and we say, "Well, who else can I help?" And that's that's a pretty powerful thing, right?
And you're kind of passionate about it. Sometimes you just want to look at people and go, "If you could just see what I see."
Yeah.
I want to do that all the time.
It's a beautiful story, beautiful journey, and I know that clients that you work with go through that same process. Russ, I want to shift gears and just ask a few different questions about you, your life, your learning. What is something that you have learned in the last 2 to 3 years that excites you the most?
Powerful question. I'm kind of on a journey right now of exploring what's possible from the last 2 to 3 years. I think the last 2 to 3 years has really molded me into a very different leader, thought leader, to the point where it scares me what's possible. I look at the globe, I look at online, I look at how many people are in this world, and what I've learned just over the past 3 years, what's possible. And so I've really been doing some deep work in navigating that path and really fine tuning next steps. But I think the biggest things that I've learned, through really, the last 3 years, trials, good times, bad times, is that change is inevitable, right? There's not I feel like a lot of us think that there's just going to be this moment in our life that it's just going to be a smooth ride,
Mm-hmm.
and there's not going to be any turbulence. There's not going to be any bumps. But what I've come to terms with in the past 2-3 years, to answer your question, is there's no finish line.
Yeah.
There's just a peak.
It really isn't.
There really isn't. It's just
That's
a peak.
great. There's no finish line.
And so, I think, when we think about there's no finish line, then there's no reason to get complacent. There's no reason to get, stagnant. There's no reason to, get caught up in the nonsense of the world and fear. And you just got to shift to low gear, right? And really stay grounded and present in the moment. And always realize that there's no finish line.
Well, if you do get stagnant, like just treat it as a pause. All right, I'm gonna enjoy this pause, and then I'm back on it again.
100%.
Yeah.
It's a season, right?
Yeah, it's a season. I tell people, if you don't believe in change, show me your baby pictures.
Right?
There it is right there. You used to shit on yourself. Now you don't.
That's great.
A few more years, you'll go back to shit.
Right, you'll go back.
Probably shit on yourself here soon in a couple of years.
Right. It'll be very different, but it'll be a change. But yeah.
Russ, aside from shitting on yourself, what scares you right now?
The infrastructure of where my mind's at. It's global. It's huge, and so the infrastructure of that kind of global vision scares.
I love that.
Yeah.
The infrastructure of your mind. I love that phrase. That's a cool,
expansive
evolved T-shirt.
Yeah.
The infrastructure of my mind. God damn, Russ. It's beautiful.
What are you most proud of right now?
I think the biggest thing I'm proud of is the father and husband that I am, in spite of the way I grew up, the way that the way I grew up. I'm just really proud of the dad, the husband, and the intentional father that I am. So
beautiful.
I love the relationship you have with your kids. I look at all your pictures when you're posting them, and freaking frack. I love the relationship you have with them, man.
My world. So it's
they're great kids. Beautiful. Who's inspiring you right now?
Other than Steve and I.
Yeah, man. There's a lot of influences right now in my life that inspire me. I could just pick one. I'd have to go with the guy that really changed my life in a moment where I needed it. Satem Manali. I owe a lot to that guy. He really gave me a breath of fresh air and give me the tools necessary to navigate what I was going through when I was losing my gym. I had $200 in my account, so I'd have to give it to him. Great
call out there. Russ, if you were to go back and give your former self 10 years ago advice, what would it be?
Don't sweat the small stuff. I'm a big overanalyzer. I tend to overthink things to the point where I get sick, and so I would tell my younger self, man, that, love the journey and don't sweat the small stuff. Just do what you can, control what you can control, and don't sweat the small stuff.
Great advice. Final question for you. So at Evolve, we believe that people evolve by stacking one simple habit on top of another. If there's one habit that you would like our listeners to start with and be consistent with, what would it be?
Your language to yourself.
Tell us more.
Language creates. I have a very, very, I guess it's my language in my head has created all my outcomes in my life. And so the stories, the conversations I have, the words I use, the flow, and my, what I call CSCs, my conscious self creations have created my current reality right now. And so if there's any habit that you can create, that you can, really hone into, it's your communication with yourself, because your communication with yourself is going to plant in that subconscious mind, which is going to work for you, and it's going to spit out everything that you say. And so it's definitely self-talk.
Love that. Well, Russ Sherman, what a great conversation. Very proud of you. Very proud of all the great things that you're doing, that you're creating, and grateful for you to come and join us for a what I think will be a very inspirational and informational conversation for our listeners.
Yeah, man.
And on that note, folks, it is time for us to wrap up another episode of the Evolve Podcast. We want to thank Russ for joining us today, and my co-host, W. Miles Riley. Russ, you've got a lot of great things going on. What is the best way for people to connect with you and follow your personal evolution?
So I'm not one of your tech geeks. I'm definitely tech illiterate. And so I think that the easiest way to find me is on Facebook, Russ Sherman. That's where I have all my stuff. I've got 5 different social media platforms, but Facebook's going to be your quickest bet. I'm kind of, that's my habit right there. So you can find me there, DM me there. Love to serve, love to impact.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Only in this current environment can a man get on and say he's tech illiterate with 5 different platforms.
There's more than 5. There's probably like 20 that we're tech illiterate on, if we're being honest, right? There's so many. There's new stuff coming out every single day. So we're with you there, buddy.
I was going to say like MySpace. He said, I got 5 different platforms.
Yeah. Miles has still got his MySpace account, right?
I actually do.
I do too.
Oh, I was actually joking. Nice. I never had one, so I just assumed they were all gone. Well, Russ Sherman, once again, thanks so much for joining us. Great conversation, and I think our listeners are really going to enjoy listening to it and getting some great motivation from you.
Yeah, there's some golden nuggets in there.
Yeah, for our listeners, hey, remember that it does take time and consistency to evolve, but first you have to disrupt. And now it's time for you to get out there and evolve.
And evolve.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Evolve Podcast. Follow us on your favorite podcast app, and if you haven't done so, please give us a rating. As an independent podcast, it really helps us get more reach. This podcast is part of our mission to help millions of people evolve into the best versions of themselves. Please check out our coaching services at evolve-cast.com or pick up some of our Evolve merch. Until next time, keep evolving.